You're going to love them. You're going to see them, and you're going to maybe see them fragging, maybe not. It comes down to the map. But Joba, Osti, Frosty, Lusueño, Nabber, and Tiny are going to be your roster for the likes of Texas A&M, the squad that you've seen before. Maybe some different names here and there because they got fraggers all over the place. And then obviously on the other side of the end, we're going to have Waterloo going ahead and dishing things out for you.
Yep, we got Noble, and we got Bing Chilling stepping out for Lusueño, and Thieni, so we'll be able to see them. But as you mentioned, their opponent for the Waterloo Warriors Gold are going to be Little D, Havix, Justin, Light, and Phantom. And I was curious to see, which roster they were going to pull out for tonight, because they have been switching out their members as well. So Sky probably taking a back seat on the coaching position tonight. We'll see how that fares. But like I said, we know what Tamamoon's strong suits are, and it's been rocky on every map for Waterloo Warriors Gold. So why don't we check out the maps for tonight to see if it can shed some light here for the Waterloo Warriors and give them a hope of getting this major upset over Texas A&M Maroon, Mick.
Well, I mean, going ahead and looking at this thing, I mean, we're kind of looking at somewhat of a mirror of what we saw to Texas A&M last week. We are going to be seeing the Lotus, and we're going to be seeing the Icebox again. But rather than seeing that bind opener, we're going to be looking at a scent more so. So something that obviously Texas A&M wanted to switch up a little bit. They still have something relatively familiar, but the Waterloo Warriors are going to be swapping something up right here off the get-go. And by mean swapping up, just swapping another collegiate special for another collegiate special, because Ascent just kind of feels a little more standard. But, I mean, it kind of makes sense at the end of the day. I mean, Ascent isn't really all that crazy. Bind is what they wanted to get right off the board. And after seeing what we saw TMU do to the rest of these teams over the course of the season, we were expecting that Bind pick to be a lot stronger for them. We saw a couple weaknesses that really started to falter through on the second side of the field. But, I mean, they have really picked things up, and they maybe can really come out swinging this week. But to see them on Ascent, I think it's more of a litmus test at this point to say in and out, in and out. But I think, honestly, what the Warriors have to do is they really have to go ahead and exert this on that defensive side, make sure that tack is very oppressive and pushes back into that spawn. Make sure to lock these guys off, get a couple picks when they're trying to set something up, because you're not only going to have numbers on that site, but you're going to have them in their spawn as well when they're waiting for the rotates.
And we do get the resurgence of that double sentinel as we get a first look at the agent select here for these two squads. I mean, Tama Maroon, a more rehearsed team, obviously going to go for that meta composition. But, I mean, it's interesting, right? Little D, they're the one that's been flexing from this Phoenix to this Sage. So I'm hoping they'll be able to find some stability here. In addition, right? I mean, Justin and Triller, I guess Curdy, they've been also being those players that switch between the KJ and the Omen, trying to figure out what works best for them. So it's nice to see, finally a repeat composition, I guess, so we can figure out what will in fact work for them here. But Mick, we're already getting into the action here, and as we said, Waterloo Warriors Gold on the attack, and they might be running into this crossfire here once the alarm bot makes contact.
Oh, they're most definitely ready for it. I mean, you already see the flashes prepped. You already see the double stack on the top of that back spawn, but even then, more so the ice wall already coming up and locking things up towards that middle of the map, just creating an absolute fiddle for the team and locking up that middle map for them to take full composition of this B site. Just lock it down, create this kind of border that you can play off of, and then put some extra pressure back towards that spawn to create these guys in a suffocating environment. But they just don't really find much out of it, with already Tiny able to go ahead, find a couple of these players, get those lock-offs, and then find, once more, the player advantage to clear out that first round here for Texas A&M. So while a rocky little start, I'd say, for them, is something they probably weren't expecting, well, the guns and the adaptation was there just instantaneously.
Thanks.
No, I do completely understand the gambles that were being taken by Havoc, being taken by Curdy there to get aggressive, to try and stop that kind of flood-style retake, since we said that Tama Maroon is confident in those retakes, especially on a pistol where everything is on even footing. But, I mean, Thieni, just the hero play, that 3K alone is, as you put it, was very suffocating, and they definitely ran out of air sooner rather than later. So, first round in favor of Tama Maroon. Standard buy coming through here. My only, I guess, question mark is this judge. So I am a little bit concerned when I see them headed towards the A site, which is where this judge is kind of hanging out. But we'll see if it gets its day of reckoning.
Well, the judge may be a great idea, depending on where you go on the map. The one that is still kind of outlined to me is going to be that outlaw that we saw.
We Stinger Force.
A little bit of a interesting buy nonetheless already from the Warriors, and it may be able to pay off. But once again, this expectation, but better yet, the surprise, is once more an even better thing to really find a result from, because already Havix is running over the entire team, creating that pressure that's necessary. While the barrier orb goes exactly where the door would and not going up towards heaven, you still want to go ahead and at least get something down, some kind of insurance, some kind of extra net there. And already you're finding that right back at the enemy spawn as Texas A&M are already down to a singular player on the secondary round. It seems like unless we can get a massive clutch coming through from the Sova and Tiny, he found 3 in the last one, but he's not going to find anything in this one.
And the counter Sova lights edit here. Gonna be like, I can get those frags as well. And it really is, you know, high risk, high reward when you force up those stingers. And them being able to shut down that judge from this venue as easily as they did definitely paved the way into that A site. And I mean, getting the Bulldog into your arsenal that early on as well, and using that to provide forward pressure so you can't have a retake attempt. All of it just beautifully coordinated. So now suddenly the ones on the off foot are going to be Texas A&M. Maroon here, a Bucky, a Marshall, even a Shorty here for Joba, trying to, you know, bait off of the Sova contact from Thieni here. B main, but where's gold? They were expecting some sort of eco play push, some form of aggression. So they're playing a little bit more default, a little bit more patient, waiting for the contact to come to them.
Yeah, definitely holding back now at the stage of the game, understanding. I mean, the Warriors, they are bringing some weird, unorthodox plans here onto the field of Ascent. And quite frankly, from our perspective at least, when there's no stakes at hand, we love to see it. Love to see these differentials, love to see these different game plans coming our way, but problem is, sometimes that surprise only plays for one side of the field, and on the attacking end, when you find a force, that's a lot more investment, but it's also a lot better when you see that it actually found its success. Unlike that kind of surprise shorty push that's going to come through right towards B main, not finding any success because the Warriors Gold are still sitting in a flawless round so far. They're looking to replicate what they did in the last one.
I know that lineup, very unfortunate there. As we said, Thieni was supposed to be the bait. The Shorty doesn't get a frag, and now with the turret and lights edit adding to their tallies, Sueño, Bucky trying to bait players into the fight, and Purdy with the running gun is superior, and that flawless site take remains a flawless round finish to reclaim the lead. A stark turn around here, and I mean at 6-1, you already have the Hunter's Fury online too.
Yeah, I mean, that's another big thing I was looking at. It's going to be these ultimates, because, I mean, you mentioned Lil D being the replacement on that Phoenix, now going over onto the Sage. Looking at these fraggers, sometimes you do want to put your fraggers on the Sage, as crazy as it may sound. If you have a more passive Phoenix who already uses his walls and his fireball and his hot hands to heal himself, a Sage could do that same exact thing for themselves, but they can do it a little bit better, because obviously if they're fragging, they're getting a lot of resurrections on the field, which causes some very, very good sustainable eco for your entire team, because you're not really dropping guns like anybody else. You always have something available for you. But speaking of availability, the Hunter's Fury you mentioned already is coming underway. It's looking for impact on the site. It doesn't find much, but hey, it's at least good to know that it's been out there, and well, those angles you shot, nobody's there.
You know, great zoning impact allows him now to take this site to challenge Joba backside, and a 1-for-1 trade, and that weapon collected is pretty fair when you know you're on this bonus. I am interested in the late round impact of Curdy still on this barrier wall, but looks like it's going to expire sooner rather than later. And I mean, Lil D's going to take all of the action here so far, and long range Spectre a little bit worse for wear here. Remaining. And I mean, you said it, Lil D, Sages like to frag, and that 3K sends Osty Frosty running. A heavy investment from the operator, not wanting to get handed over here, but hunting party is out. Mick, will they find them in time?
Well, there's a good bit of time still on the field, so I mean, obviously you're expecting this to come their way. I mean, that shutdown and retake was shut down almost immediately. So considering that you get all the time in the world to go on this hunting party, and even then you haven't really invested too much in these past couple rounds, of once again another round where you don't really have the full rifles and you still manage to get something because you understand the angles that are successful for you, it's just well played. But even then, a massive closure there from Light Edits, able to close things out, find another round, not only for the Warriors, but find a round where you've wiped everybody off the field. Slate cleaned out for Texas A&M, where they're once again in a situation where they're having to go onto an eco. So that's the fun game that we're seeing of the Warriors here, is they're not just really building their economy, they're taking these slow and steady upgrades like they're playing an RPG, and meanwhile Texas A&M, they're just robbing their corpses on a round-to-round basis to really just sustain their economy and show that even on a round like this, they're a couple of the players holding on to 6K, which they can subsidize for someone else. So once again, another good push coming through, but they got to expect somebody in these corners. They got to play it a little unorthodox. They got to be a little annoying, like these pesky mosquitoes in your face. And, well, better yet, by being in your face, we could also be on site. They managed to do that just as well.
Yeah, but Thieni still, nope, biting, searching for that perfect frag, and they will be delivered upon it. But with the Storm Grenade shredding, they're only able to secure one more, but damage done. We're equated 3-on-3, and it's going to be the Grim Wall to hopefully keep this round in favor of the Warriors. And Sueño, again, in the clutch situation. Again, only a Bucky to their name. Ulting instead for the classic here. Maybe we could get the Deagle upgrade to hit some nasty shots like we saw Thieni do to make this even a feasible round, but there's so much utility on the side of Waterloo Warriors Gold. I don't see what they can do other than play for some exit frags.
That's really it. I mean, you're just trying to die here for the sake of money, knowing things aren't really going in your way. Every single kill in the meantime is going to work out for you, but problem is you don't find anything. So those two players that were knocked down is all you're really going to be able to kind of compensate for. And knowing going into the next round, the Warriors just up 4-1 inside of this map thus far of Ascent. It's been nothing but an absolute, just spectacular showing for them to see what they've been able to manage. I mean, the way they've been playing these eco rounds, because keep in mind, they played like 2 or 3 of them just going over and over and over again off the back of a singular force and showing it was flawless. It kind of gave them this perspective to say, well, we have nothing really left to lose at this point. Obviously, we want to drop these guns eventually, so we can just kind of run it down, speed up the game more and more and more to the point where Texas A&M don't quite frankly know how to react to it. But I feel it's going to be the first round with the 4 rifles across the board where things are going to start to slow down, and Warriors Gold can't really go for their crazy plays anymore. If there's a time to step up, this is when Maroon has to do it.
Completely agree. I mean, once you get the Operator and the Odin online in conjunction, that's when you expect the pieces to fall into place. But, I mean, that's one way to get it started simultaneously. First Bloods on both fronts. Joba following it up here too, so definitely delivering what you were asking for in that regard, Mick. And this is one of the reasons why I don't want to say I hate Ascent, but once this Operator and this Odin are online together, you're basically picking your poison, and it's so hard to tie rounds together on your attack. So these 4 rounds that they got early on are definitely going to be tested here for the Waterloo Warriors Gold. And I mean, even Curdy, Rim, they're considering saving, I think, at this point. I mean, a lot of time left, so maybe they'll go for a plant, but I mean, they still have a player on site and Nabber in the back pocket of Tree.
You still have Spike, so maybe if you get that singular kill, you can at least get it down, maybe find that extra money. The problem is Laswinga is not even going to give you that chance. You mentioned the kind of the static feel of Ascent that we see over and over again, and I mean, it gets to that point where now the well of surprise has kind of run dry, and we're right back to the game of expectations. I mean, we're just looking at these lineups, understanding and respecting the economy, and saying we can't really mess around with that anymore. We don't have this leeway. We have to just play the game as it's expected to be, and I mean, that's when Texas A&M starting to finally get to that kind of entire mind game where they understand what you're going to be going for. They understand the avenues you're going to be lining up on, and they understand what kind of shots are going to be made. The only real thing we could see as a switch up is, keep in mind, maybe EG's kind of lineup. We saw the double Odin coming back towards that panel, and already with the Operator lineup and the Odin coming across the way, shooting through those walls, it looks like they're trying to replicate this to some degree on the side of the Warriors, but even then, not finding nearly as much success. Instead, still just getting run through by the Warriors because they just don't quite frankly care about the space you try to create.
Oh, I mean, Havoc's that Operator investment last round did rear its ugly head in terms of the buy. Now, I mean, Bladestorm getting taken offline as well from that 0 point, but it shows no effects in their fragability, their lethalness as they catch Sovok guard trying to use utility. They almost catch Lusueño, but with 48 HP and no shield, I mean, I respect this decision to grab the Operator and run for the hills. I mean, 1v2 would have been feasible, but with this much utility for light edits online and that Odin, like we said, lethal and a great counter, I mean, it'll be 5-2. You still got rounds to work with to end on a 7-5 or a 6-6.
It most definitely will. I think, honestly, Texas A&M are just kind of chalking up not this entire half, but at least a couple of these rounds because they understand what the game gets to a point where they're going to be on the attacking side. They don't nearly have as much concerns because their post-plant game from what we saw last week is just astronomical, but they don't really give up too much knowing that Operator's going to be a core plan to hold down the middle of the map, because when you bring out these surprise plays I mentioned, I mean, that place is going to be critical to it. You're expecting these pushes from these main areas. You want to make sure you don't really get wrapped around from any kind of alternative angle. So having that Operator online is going to be very critical to them. But I mean, already looking at Texas A&M, they've also been going ahead and holding on all their ultimates as well. They're not flooding in one by one. They're looking for the opportunity to say, can this round completely mess up the Warriors? And I don't really think it matters at the end of the day. Sure, the economy can be terrible for them, but still, when these guns are bad, that's when the Warriors really start to shine, because they get to these kind of like cornered animal states where they just get that much more ferocious because they know that their guns really don't matter, and their lives as a result don't matter as much either.
I am concerned, and I hope that we don't see Tam and Maroon dump all these ultimates into the same round, because if they do, then I mean there's still like 2 more rounds, and Warriors Gold has the advantage before this side swap. But regardless of the Killjoy lockdown being brought online, I want to see it used as a fake somewhere here to pave the way, because for the start of this run at least, the Waterloo Warriors look a little bit lost, unsure of where they want to go. We see kind of the semblance of a setup for an A split here, and the Killjoy obviously lurking, trying to fizzle out that pressure or that faux pressure from Theani's recon utility into tiles. And with that 0 point, they don't even want to follow through on the A execution. They're trying to get backdoor options to the B site through mid.
You really can't blame them. I mean, with how fast and how aggressive these Warriors have been so far, you're looking for these kind of different ways to really push onto a site, but they just don't expect Aussie Frosty in the back of that A site, ready up towards having to take a free shot. So looking for that rotation, seeing that KJ slip all the way back through the spawn, moving towards the back of the map. This could be a free at least 1 or 2 kills as long as you have the right angle, but already turning away. It doesn't even really matter because the rest of the players are funneling into B, cornering zhobiii back there, but this is the point where this guy has to go off and go ballistic. But a KJ of their own, and the likes of Justin, to be able to do that and replicate the same thing.
Oh, they almost get... I really thought Lusueño was going to stop the spike from getting planted, but the beautiful bait, the distraction coming through from Justin there allows Little D to find their footing, allows them to find the frag, and allows the team to find the round. And with 6 on the board, they're sitting pretty for the rest of the half. And, I mean, as you mentioned, all those ultimates used by Tam and Maroon in trade for almost all of them on the board for Waterloo Warriors Gold showcases how now I do think that they're going to end with an advantage in this half, Mick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with you here. I mean, these rounds, they're just all over the place where the Warriors, they just had this mentality where they just don't care. Obviously, they care about the results of the game, but how they go for the approaches, they don't want to kind of go for your traditional low and slow. They just find themselves different ways of approaching a problem, and it's just shown in so many different aspects in this game thus far. So we can see exactly how this goes, not only to find yourself a guaranteed half, but how to make sure to give yourself a guaranteed advantage, or better yet, just a cherry on top towards the end with so much damage already done. A nice little nano swarm being thrown towards that door, and just capitalizing up the damage that's there. It's just these small little nano mistakes that are just kind of adding up here and just kind of spelling Texas A&M's doom. But already as it sounds, it's not as bad as it could be, with some approaches being made, some distance being closed. You do see a retake coming their way. It's a 4v5, not everything in the world available for it, but even then, if a shot could be made by zhobiii, that could have been an avenue taken, but already it just comes out of Aussie Frosty with that Blaze Storm in hand. Nabber and Tiny just doing everything on site, and with a swift cleanup once more by Tiny getting a 3K, it shows that, well, that's another round here for Texas A&M, but they're still only sitting at half of what the Warriors have put on the board.
I feel like that round was just a display of the Waterloo Warriors Gold feeling a little bit too comfortable. Like, yes, they understood that it was an eco round for Tam and Maroon. They took the site very effectively. But those 2 players that were tucked away in A main, I wanted to see a little bit more reserve from them. I mean, you have these powerful kind of bailout ultimates like the lockdown, like the resurrection, that were tucked away safely, and instead they swing the player's heaven, specifically Theani, who did have that hero rifle. And I mean, you see the outcome, the round going in favor of Tamu Maroon. You're still sitting on 4 ultimates, so we'll see what happens when they bring them back to the A site, when they try to remedy the mistakes we just saw get made. I'm hopeful they're listening in to what I just mentioned, and I mean, time will tell.
You can just tell off the rip of every single one of these rounds, they want to give this space up. They want to let these guys take these sites. They don't want to let them overwhelm these guys on these sites and around these corners. But what they would rather do is kind of find a way to find these trades, go for the retakes. But that's whenever we see the Warriors look disgusting, because they hold these close angles extremely efficiently. Is those long angle lineups that they really start to show that, okay, Texas A&M, these angles start to go in their direction. To where if we're in a map like Breeze, I feel like the Warriors are looking at maybe a 0 to 9 start. But considering they're using all these angles so efficiently, this is where they can really excel. Just time and time again, just by kind of rolling the dice and going with the game plan given.
Your duty is not over.
There it is, the resurrection coming online, but that close angle still being held. Nabber just doubles down on their frags. Purdy, though, could be the bailout in this round, could be the difference maker. I need them to maintain this A main pressure, but with them swinging one after another, Nabber's now on par for an ace, and cat's out of the bag for Curdy. Fortunately, we do have from the shadows, so I don't really like them hunting for frags there when they could have run the B site, could have tried to get a plant and play the post plant, but regardless, the round is over. You look at the past and gauge the mistakes moving on, and I mean, I think I cast a curse the Mick. I'm like, I see very easily in their cards this advantage, and now we're looking at a 6-4, and all those ultimates that I was leaning into, they're favoring them, are gone.
I mean, just using a 1x1x1, I mean, you really can't blame the Warriors, but I mean, one of them that are really questionable is where you see a player that has died in a killable angle, you go ahead and resurrect it with no sort of coverage, or knowing that player's gonna be dead. Never got a 4K off that, two of which are both on the same exact player. So, I mean, that's still ultimate ticks at the end of the day. It doesn't invalidate it, but one thing that could be invalidated very early on is that avenue pressure out of an operator, with already a singular player getting mailed down, and Tiny being the MVP once more, the multi-kill man. Here for the side of the Texas A&M Maroon, we see once more already a 2K, maybe a 3K underway, but when you look at only 2 players remaining on the side of the Warriors, they're going to take this slow and steady and just go somewhere else completely different with that from the shadows.
So A site secured, Light Edit's in a position to cause harm on these rotations, and the Odins deliver, so Nabber, recognizing that Light Edit is going to be late to the party, shows them no mind, no caution. They want to focus heavily here on to Purdy to get that early frag. But that 1v1 is going to be won outright, and thank you so much, Waterloo Warriors Gold, for at least securing that 7th year, so that I am not a liar in that regard, but that's the kind of impact I wanted to see from the shadows, Mick, the previous round, and they just deliver a little bit belated, so I'm okay with that.
I mean, that was purely off the back, though, I gotta say, of Light Edits. I mean, considering that we saw that 2K from the Odin, just kind of the unexpected lurking player around on that B side of the map, no rotation even queued yet. Just saying, that's a player on an island, it's okay. I'm going to trust my Omen to be that fragger. I'm trusting this guy to act like a duelist in any other matchup, but already just securing that and then having the Odin still in hand just to kind of spray things down and turn that wall into paper mache. But one big fight is going to be right here off the get-go. These KJ differentials have been insane. Joba hasn't really showed up in the same respect we've seen him over previous weeks, but Justin has been filling those shoes appropriately and has just been a big factor just on a consistent basis.
Placing swamp grenade.
I mean, A-site deserted. Rotations coming in from Tamu Maroon, but I mean, Justin with this utility and those early frags has essentially terraformed it with this Killjoy utility, with this spray down from Hell, and I mean, Little D has their back covered as well from main. Surprise Thean, he's able to skip and pop away. And now, I mean, a 4v2 situation. Purdy still playing on the aggressive, and there it goes. One frag after another, they hunt down Aussie Frosty in an 8-4 half on their map pick. On a side, when I said you shouldn't be favored looking at these compositions, and I mean, Mick, they're heading into defense where they have 2 Sentinels, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it's just something wild here from the Warriors to go ahead and just find themselves at such an adamant start. But I mean, even then 8-4, doubling the score, Texas A&M. This is a side where, I mean, we're expecting to kind of light things up, obviously. This is the map that every single team's supposed to know to some degree. And you mentioned that Texas A&M hasn't really seen this map show up inside their selections too much over the course of the season. And, well, you better wake up and learn Click, because you're probably going to see it a lot in playoffs. But as it stands so far, you need to make sure to start to figure things out, because we talk about these playbooks, we talk about how they don't want to give up too much. You still want to find a win at the end of the day, so this is a side where you got to do it.
All right, so here comes the trial, the pistol, the chance for Tamu Maroon to right the sinking ship. And we'll see. I mean, aggression from mid early on. We saw this actually from Warriors Gold on their pistol as well, but I mean, that over-aggression is zealousness into BCT is what cost them the round. See if Tamu Maroon makes the same mistake, but for now, I really need to see proper timing from Joba here to cancel out this now divided double-pronged pressure that they have, and so far they haven't been able to be that backstab required. They're able to get one. The Killjoy they finally delivered. 2v3 unfolds, and Havoc wreaks havoc with a clean shot following another, and what started out as Tamu Maroon fighting back in that pistol crumbles underneath their carnage.
Yeah, 3K cleanup, just absolutely showing once more the Warriors Gold. I mean, I'm just kind of more curious to see what they can do with having an advantage, because we saw them force up regardless, win or loss at this point. So I'm curious to see what they do when they actually have the advantage to work with. You can already see Havoc's just kind of capitalizing off that, saying, why not go for a Vandal? What's the worst that could happen? We die and they pick it up anyways. It's probably going to happen regardless. So maybe if I just am the one player to hold on to it, go hunting, get an early Blade Storm on the board, then I can just go ahead and find a way to counteract any kind of weapons they want to do in a further round. But early pressure coming here, right through the middle of the map with that spike in hand. The alarm about to give it that positioning, but even then, Justin, as I mentioned, being that Sentinel, being such a star player on the attacking side, now you're on the side you should be, and let's see what you can make of it.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen how strong these boathouse holds can be. But that was from the Killjoy and Sova from Tam and Maroon's side. We'll see if Warriors Gold can make a replication of it, but we'll have to wait to see if that history writes itself later on, because rotation, the pivot is into this A site through tree. Fortunately, though, they are stalled out, waiting for the barrier wall to break. They don't want to give any indications of their actions until absolutely necessary, which delivers in the form of the 0 point. Lil D not in a position to escape, but they're able to get 2 with the stinger before Frosty finally shuts them down. So 4v3 on the table, challenging Curdy off of the recon bolt contact, and run and gun can only get you so far when Frosty's deagle shots are hitting one after another, and they're like, all right, I gotta deliver, but Shock Darts say, no, you can't.
Absolutely clothesline, but I mean, still, Shred of Light here. Sueño can't really find the shots there, when with the Warriors Gold closing things up, or at least by starting the round with that 2K. Already starting things off with a stinger, heavy hitting. You get yourself in a position where you know you have numbers for the rest of the round. Just play one by one, don't get too crazy with it, and then that's where you kind of saw a couple of those trades being warranted. Still carrying over that Vandal to the next round, and in Ares as well. You're looking for the 2 most expensive guns, those being the opted avenues, and still an opportunity maybe for a round here. As much as I love Havoc's having a gun, and sure, that player went off in that last round, or the first one of this half, I think now in a situation where you're running a Vandal, you don't want to overextend. You don't want to give it to the one player who's willing to just kind of throw it.
Curse revitalized.
Well, with the conclusion of the timeout, with guns in the hands of these A&M players, this is the moment that they have. This is quite frankly has to be the start of the end, because, well, it's going to be that no matter what. Because either you're looking at a massive string of comeback rounds here for the side of Texas A&M, or you're seeing the Warriors Gold already just going ahead, hitting that number 11. And this kind of point right here is where I talk about where it's so important. Being that 10th round, being that final countdown, already able to go ahead, secure a kill, and pick up a gun off the back of it as well.
That's huge. Now 2 rifles on the table, just to getting some very beneficial chip damage as well on this rotation to the A site. That now allows Curdy to get some frags on the board for the team, and with Navar's attention splintered, another frag, and as it settles a 2v3, narrowly favoring Waterloo Warriors Gold. Spike down. Very precarious position here on Switch. The players as well for Time and Maroon divided. I want to see some collective effort to challenge one at a time, but they have to wait for the Sova utility to recharge to make these assessments as to where the pressure is coming from.
I'm surprised that Texas A&M just didn't take this kind of a straightforward round approach already, going ahead, just pushing these alternative angles where, I mean, the Warriors already know about it, but Job, this is going to be your moment. The guy hasn't really lit up the game much, but able to go ahead, at least find that one kill and get yourself a spike plan as well. A bit of an, I'd say, an awkward start for them, all things considered. Great for them to rebound and bounce back in a round that it was very critical for them, but already, I think off the back of a timeout, going for these alternative plays is going to be a little bit, I just say expected from the side of the Warriors Gold. They've already kind of pulled out these awkward playbooks to start off these halves with. I mean, honestly, it seems like you're just kind of taking a note out of their book, and they're just expecting it at that point, because you need to be trying for these straight up angles, looking for these aim duels where you know that you find yourself more successful fights, and just kind of play off the back of that. With that gun already kind of sitting in towards the back, the Outlaw sitting back towards Puppy, you understand that that's one of those lineups to where, once again, even if the smoke isn't there, you could quite frankly just go for it.
Completely. And I like the double, I guess, pressured approach, right? You have the close range judge, the long range outlaw, trying to corral these players into those members of your team that do have weapons here, like Justin, in right outside of Pizza. So they get that frag, they hold down the line, and once again, Texas A&M Maroon forced to fall back onto a plan B. Joba as well found victim here trying to get a lurk off, and with this wall in place too, Little D's gonna have early indications, early repivots to challenge this A site take, and this has been the issue. The Sage, I think, has been so hard for Tampa Maroon to adjust with because it gives so much time to pivot around, but you can't pivot around Lusueño if they just are getting frag after frag, and they secure the site single-handedly for now. But they're one lick away from death, so they gotta play really cautious here around this Hunter's Fury. And they're finally the plan will be secured.
I mean, we just see the Warriors playing the deny game here, just looking for more time, waiting for shots, trying to listen for feet, and getting to a point where you can just say, we've already done the damage necessary for at least one of these players, and that's what Sengu just absolutely just slammed through a floor, and there's not much you can do about that, considering the Outlaw damage had already done its part. So with the rest of the team just kind of there, hearing feet stomp around out of a panicking last remaining sole survivor, it just makes an easy cleanup for them to find themselves at 11th. So, I mean, crossing that threshold of flying colors on a round off the back of what you said, not just those guns that are available to them, but even then, just making use of the Outlaw and the Judge, both of them respectively finding at least 1.5 kills in terms of damage. I mean, they're making these economic rounds just look utterly disgusting. And they've proven that not only can they do it on the attacking side, when you have that element of surprise, but on defense, when it's expected, they're still nailing those shots. I mean, this team, regardless of their record, they're showing what they're capable of, at least on a map that we feel like everybody's mastered. These other two will really have to be a testament to something, what we call more of the specialist picks.
You know, I feel like it is definitely every player delivering on the side of Waterloo Warriors Gold. I mean, Light at it's 18-8, and then this half, Havix is the one stepping up here. And I love this kind of play that they're going for around this one-way here. A main, and I mean, it's supposed to bait for Curdy, but they were trying to replace the one-way. So they're robbed of their life. They're robbed of that A main control. You see a fast pivot trying to come out of the rest of the Warriors, fighting their way back towards this site. Like Lil D, who gets away with a criminal shot and a criminal frag. Even then, I like the spread out of Tampa Maroon. I want to see this wall break so Joba can have their moment to shine, but I mean, it has to come sooner rather than later. The rest of their team is now up against the wall, namely Aussie Frosty in main.
Mentioning Justin over and over again, now being on the defensive side of the field, knowing one of these singular players are, not even being alive now, just comes out of Lil D, and this is the criminal. This is that convict that we've seen now been in an escaping situation, but already, once again, is just looking for these swing peaks, can't really get it off. Speaking of not getting off, the Blades are not following up, but Aussie Frosty, having a Guardian available, can manage to get at least a 6 here on the field. So a little bit of an awkward situation considering you don't have much remaining, and it just comes down to that one exact knife and a gun, just to kind of find yourself a smaller margin of difference between you and the team who's now sitting at 1 off map point and 1 off just kind of winning it outright, but still creating some breathing air, creating some room, just kind of airing out the map and saying, okay, there's still a chance here. It's going to take a good bit of rounds to get there, but finally shutting down the economy for at least a round, and maybe seeing a Blade Storm being used in retaliation here. Yeah. I mean, it's really just going to come down to these star players and who's going to be the highlight, because Warriors Gold, I feel like everybody's been firing here. I mean, Texas A&M just got to have that star player to step up.
I mean, I feel like for Waterloo Warriors Gold, it hasn't even been all the star players' frag potential. It's been this in-depth playbook, right? We haven't seen an aggressive push out like that on an eco round. Yep. And although it doesn't find anything, it shows what they have and are capable of. And they've set up this early retake strategy as well, having numbers towards this site, but unfortunately, that aggression, and I mean, Joba finally able to perform there was a sentinel hold down the flank, keeps a lot of control in favor of Tamu Maroon. So you can see the splintering, you can see these players now leaning into, like you said, those hero player qualities to try and take these solo fights. But, I mean, might be too late at this point. Curdy more playing for an exit frag onto Joba here potentially and friends, and I mean, even Lil D. I mean, these are your eco weapons that you don't want to have to lean into. You really wanted Havix to have that star quality moment, but Bucky delivers for 1. Singer realizing it's not going to get much action, and they just have to die to the spike here.
Just go down with a vengeance. Don't give up any kind of points in the meantime. So look to over-aggress and just earn yourself that money. You're looking way too close to the end of the road to really kind of give up too much to Texas A&M to give them that edge, or at least give them more so of one, if you're expecting them to kind of have the momentum swinging in their favor now. So I want to see what Warriors go to do to kind of slow things down, let this game go back towards their direction, and even then more so how they just want to kind of catch Texas A&M off their heels again. Because, I mean, it feels like a lot of these first bloods that have been going underway just kind of feel like these awkward fights that are either dictated by timing or even then more so just kind of, as you mentioned earlier, the funneling of these players into these angles where they just don't expect a little bit of a setup because they're expecting, okay, it's too far up the map onto our side. You're not going to invade that space. When quite frankly, you can never be too wrong.
Speaking of space invading, Light Edits here, not trying to give any semblance of mid control over to Tamu Maroon here early on. We can already see the hesitancy there, maybe expecting that Odin Spray to have kind of shuffled a player into a deeper mid position, but no, Curdy and Havoc's, and it's kind of aggressive, the deeper mid hold. And I love these defensive protocols that the Waterloo Warriors Gold have been pulling out. Now, I mean, the full rotation going to come through. The A main sleepers are going to get their time to shine, hopefully, on this A execution. But I mean, look at the strategy for for Waterloo Warriors Gold, right? They're playing for retake. This utilities season for a tree hold. I mean, you have the protector that is Light Edits, so this lockdown can come into play. So, I mean, it's just going to be probably a 5-on-5 retake here.
I mean, more than likely, it really comes down to, once again, the middle of the map, and we're going to see coming out of zhobiii here, whether or not you can get that wrap, find that timing, and really secure everything that's necessary for you. So able to go ahead and close out one. Aussie Frosty on site doing what they're supposed to. It comes down to that lockdown that's going to funnel all those players off and say, sure, that worked, but only for so long, because you're still everywhere and about, still looking for something and try to create this space on site. And while Aussie Frosty was given that space, everybody on the Warriors team is still well aware, at least to some degree. You would at least think that Curdy knows to some extent that there is still a player inside enemy territory that is mowing through your ranks, all while being held captive inside hell.
I mean, Waterloo Warriors just dumped everything they could into that round. I mean, the lockdown, the resurrection, and it doesn't matter. Aussie Frosty says, I take your ultimates, I raise it to 4K, and I walk away with the round. Now 3 rounds only separating these two squads, and 3 rounds in a row from Texas A&M Maroon. My question is, when does Waterloo Warriors Gold take their timeout? When do they stall out this momentum? Because they're about to enter another econ cycle, and if they lose this, then their timeout will be when it's 10-11. And I'm guessing that's when they're going to be taking it, but I'm excited to see what other eco strategies they have in their arsenal, specifically this time, looking like they're going for more of a decisive A anchor, because A is the site that has been working for Tamu Maroon recently, so it's expected for them to go for it again here.
Even then, I mean, it comes down to these definitive angles. How well can you hold these? How much surprise can you still kind of keep amongst your players? Because, I mean, the gamble's already worked to a certain degree. You're seeing a 50-50, whether you can go for that investment or towards the A site, at least have something on B, because that Sova is not anchoring towards Boathouse. So sitting back in spawn, waiting for some kind of an answer, and giving a cue to say, I can go for a quicker rotate, I'm already setting up for that. But the rest of the team on that B side, we see that Texas A&M is still giving the Warriors Gold what they want to a degree, but it's all just a ruse. They want to give that pressure, they want to give that player presence, they want to give those audibles up to say, there's a lot that we sense here in terms of utility, and we even saw an extra player on top of that side, and they're not going to give up the middle of the map for nothing. So I think a B hit would be pretty accurate here, pretty understandable, all things considered, and you can see him kind of going for that, and even then investing in the null command off the top of it. Doesn't even really need it too much unless that, you know, that entire fire rate kind of plays off that and guarantees you that kill, but I don't really think it mattered with it being a headshot. That was probably just a first shot hit, already going ahead and locking things up. But the rest of the Warriors now having to go through this retake, find themselves in a 4v5 with these guns. And this is where things get really difficult for them, because sure, they like these close range encounters, but they're just kind of all running sheriffs rather than their kind of typical Stinger Bucky setups.
Yeah, and there it is, that forward pressure that we love to see out of Waterloo Warriors Gold allows a weapon to get collected here to give hope to this team. Havoc's expanding upon that hope. Now, I mean, Luispeño, isolated by that barrier wall. The attention now directed towards these backside boat players, but time not in their favor. They still have one player to clear out as well, and now Luispeño with the black backstab. They have to have perfect protection. The blubbings aren't actually landing. Just
oh my God.
All the
way
off of a thrifty. The curse finally broken. The map point finally secured here for Water Warriors Gold. And I mean, What a statement! And why did you take the timeout now? You
I
just
low-key love this. That's just salt in the wound, man.
For Waterloo Warriors Gold, because it gives now that opportunity, that breathing room for Texas A&M Maroon to collect themselves after a thrifty. And typically after a thrifty is when you see the opponent take that timeout to be like, all right, what went wrong catastrophically that we lost what should have been an advantageous situation. And I mean, now buys coming through again for both squads. Blaze the only ultimate in the equation here for Tam and Maroon, but I mean, we've seen Austin Frosty deliver with 4Ks, 3Ks, you name it, they've put them up on the scoreboard to get these vital rounds. And now we finally get to see some of these adjustments coming out from Tam and Maroon, right? They're trying to destroy the wall early from Lil D. They're trying to prod multiple portions of the map simultaneously, and finding Lil D this early is huge because they've been that major thorn on these rotations to the A site. The only concern now is that Curdy is actually a lot further forward to try and replace them on this hole. The Paranoia is going to open up for the frag, but a beautiful cloud burst keeps them alive.
Opens up, but it's not a very big window, all things considered, but still, I mean, looking for these trails, looking for these opportunities. Curdy is sticking to his guns. I mean, looking to just kind of hold things down, wait for a player to just be sitting amongst those smokes and not expecting somebody to be inside of their own. Creates a little bit of an unexpected result there where you have another body drop. But the Odin spray, just looking for these rotations, looking to cut these players off, and still not really having too many bullets go off. He still managed to grab Nabber, which once more, we're looking for these star players. Nabber's one of them. Aussie Frosty is another. And that leaves nothing but the rest of the crew, with Justin still being alive, Light still being alive, and Curdy still being there. Problem is, though, that defensive Jet is running an operator, which isn't really as efficient for the retake here, but we can maybe hold an angle or two.
Yeah, but Fanny feeling like they're getting a little bit eager here to support their team, and somehow they don't walk away with
you gotta
two
hit
up
those.
shots and miss. That is rough, and that is the call for Havocs, and Light edits to dip to save. I mean, they got 3 more rounds to try and get this map on onto the table, brushed away. And I mean, I need to get some glasses because I don't know how those op shots for Havocs were missing.
Yeah. It's another one of those points. I mean, heck, earlier in the game, we saw games where Vandals were shooting through chunky, just full walls of the map and acting like it was nothing. Like it was just oxygen or paper. A little bit of an awkward game nonetheless, but even then a good call from the side of the Warriors to say, let's slow things down. Understandably, we didn't find those kills, we don't find numbers, and we don't get ourselves into a situation where we can really take this back, especially with the timer going in their favor. So already understand that they had themselves a map point situation. Just comes down to closing it out, saving what you got, and then moving on into the next. Which you can see Justin having to kind of take a sacrifice for that effort, considering that only using that sheriff. You're going to be looking around your other players. You're going to be allocating more guys to that site to surround him, so you give him the opportunity to pick up a gun, worst comes to worse. And it really comes down to the opener here. That once more, is it going to get aggressive enough? Is it going to find that success and already opening things off and find that first blood? That's what you're looking for. This could be the Warriors' call to end things.
And I love now the reposition call from Waterloo Warriors Gold. I mean, you talked about that kind of, I guess, get down Mr. President mentality of having more players on the B site, but that left areas like mid, like tree unchecked temporarily because of the aiming and aggression that also came out from Lil D and Freddy. So now, I mean, Havocs, like I said, this reposition on point. So the team's looking to put it away. It might be Havocs looking to redeem themselves from the op shots last round to get this map on the board. And I mean, the Sage wall, the battle Sage has arrived as well. And just like that, in a flawless fashion. So why don't we find out? As the agents reveal themselves, I will mention that this time around, we're swapping starting sides. Waterloo Warriors Gold starting out on the defense, Tam and Maroon on the attack, and there it is. A new composition. They haven't played a chamber yet on the Waterloo Warriors side. Mick, so what do you think of that?
I'm loving the look of it. I mean, to me, not just off the chamber, but also going for that Breach and Gecko kind of initiator duo. We do typically see that Sky and Breach kind of be those backs, or maybe see like maybe a Sky and a Gecko. Sky just kind of feels like a very much standard kind of thing, but knowing the Texas Stadium is going to be bringing out doesn't really surprise me too much. It's Waterloo that we love seeing kind of bring out these wishy-washy things where we just don't see it too much, or at least in that specific manner. We see all the kind of bits and pieces of different compositions being present, but Waterloo just put it in a kind of different way where we don't see it all together all that often. So seeing that Breach, seeing that Gecko together, I love the prominence Gecko's had, quite frankly. Ever since Sky's nerfs, He's been showing up all over the place, and I feel the guy didn't get enough love to start things off with, and now he's just showing up everywhere. So I love seeing his little buddies run around.
Yeah, no, one of the most, I would say, like, flamboyant and creative personalities in Valorant. One of the more creative kits as well with that wingman, much beloved by many people. But for now, we started off the pistol round with the C aggression. And, I mean, you saw it. Waterloo Warriors Gold, no movement in this pre-round positioning here. Leaning heavily into the information that's going to be collected from light edits here and their ability to stand their own. But in this toxic screen from now, just allows you to creep up so far without any contact being made. And finally, we'll see Waterloo Warriors waver. They are going to send Justin over to accompany them. But I mean, it's just going to be a retake scenario here on the pistol of all things, Mick.
Just comes up to the retake, and here's Joba, the player who didn't really find too much of a presence in that last map. Showing up strong, at least here for the first blood with the Sheriff in hand, but even then, that's now another gun toss over to the side of the Warriors, who have another Sheriff to work with because it's right there in their grasp. But it comes down to the retake. How many's going to be coming right there from main on those stairs? How many players going to be coming from the tree? Well, it looks like a 1-3 split, but you've already cut off the one, so what about the remaining 3? They got stronger weapons. They got a wingman coming right at you, and they have all the information necessary to kind of go ahead and find the swings on these kills. With right clicks available, Lil D on site being off the stage, on the breach with a Sheriff. 2v1. Maybe Lasueño doesn't know that 50-50 is going to come at him from the same exact angle the other player did first. So Curdy now off that Omen that we saw, having some moments of stress, but having some moments of clutch and relief as well present. Now stepping up once more to win the first round for the Warriors here on this defensive side.
This is very, I would say, collected, calm understanding of how they wanted to approach that retake, even for it being a pistol round, right? You expect to see these players maybe stacking a little bit heavier in tree, so what do? They take lane control, they force through main, and then set up this double-pronged assault with that pressure through tree, and ultimately it does come down to Lasueño expected to deliver the final verdict, and, you know, too many angles to clear, Curdy with the headhunter, and it is history. But we saw this out of Waterloo Warriors on Ascent, the Stinger Force. Tama Maroon taking a page out of their book here. Gambling with just as high of stakes, trying to right things before they get out of hand. And I mean, look at this backstab. Beautiful from Curdy.
Okay.
And although the first shots missed, the rebound will not first blood Duran to get out unscathed. And I mean, look at how much Tama Maroon's space has been taken off of that.
They would push all the way back into spawn. Texas A&M going ahead, finding the same exact force we saw from the Warriors on their attacking side during their first 2 respective rounds of that last map. But it seems like, I mean, the Warriors are kind of relatively ready for it, are able to get some good damage off on everybody and kind of spread it amongst them, but it really comes down to what's really still available. Well, only 3 players, not really the best guns in the world, and the Warriors are just getting mowed down by the same exact force they witnessed during their first map. It's Texas A&M not only get themselves on the attacking side with the spike down, but they find themselves some clean kills off the back of it. Not the flawless fashion that we saw from the Warriors over in Ascent, but still nonetheless, a round secured, guns to carry over, but not nearly as much. Because as I mentioned earlier, it was like an RPG they were playing. They were just kind of picking up, looting these corpses, just climbing the ranks in that same regard. But I don't think Texas A&M's going to have that same exact luxury, saying they don't have nearly as much to carry over.
I think the carryover potential will be based on the results of this round specifically. When you have Nabber with that Bulldog, you have Aussie Frosty with that Vandal against this full squad of Deagles and some classics in the mix, this is where you want to go semi-flawlessly, right? So you can bring these bigger weapons over against the full rifle volley that has now been delayed by Waterloo Warriors. An amazing fault line to rob the first blood away from Tama Maroon. I mean, Nabber not even able to get the refrag here, and this B-side hold just as strong as before, now toppling as Curdy falls. Finally, a frag back in their favor, so back to square one, 4-on-4, but I mean, this B-side is stacked, and I'm glad to see they're not following through on it, but here comes the next challenger. Oh.
Are just pushing up, not able to manage to get a second there, but still doing damage nonetheless. That's what the Warriors are looking for. Diminish these numbers, make that retake look feasible, take it from behind, and then just lap them all the way back to their spawn. And pick up these guns that have just been littering the ground in the meantime. Obviously, with 2 players working with nothing but a classic, you're going to look for these upgrades. You're going to look for a chance, find this opportunity, and kind of create something. out of seemingly nothing so far. But with the paranoia waiting for them inside a tree, guiding light going through as well, and still managing a kill is Justin with the classic. I thought an upgrade was in order there, but well, when you're up against a Phantom or a Vandal, there's not much you can really do besides push it, get close, and put it in a situation where both the guns kind of can excel in their own right. But Austy Frosty's just having every single player swing them, and that's the 3K to not only close up the round, but to give them a showstopper to work with in the next.
No, I mean, that was the most important weapon that I said I wanted to see them keep alive here, because now you have a really full strength buy moving forward against a now fragmented economy for Waterloo Warriors Gold. They're going to be able to rustle up a buy, but if they lose this, the Tamu Maroon lead would grow theoretically to 3. And I'm glad you pointed out that early showstopper, because it's coming out of as well Theani's really early seekers. So they're doing a good job here on the attack of taking advantage of those attackers' sighted orbs and utilizing them to get these points onto the board sooner rather than later. But looks like Waterloo Warriors tired of their passive stance. One more aggressive here aggro on A, trying to force these players into the operator on the C site. And Purdy, concussed, forced to retreat off the rendezvous, and now the rocket flying in their face. The fault line has to bail them out, and considering their flash, it cannot spare them that fate. But I mean, Little D strikes back, gets out of dodge, and again, I love how Waterloo Warriors knows when to strike.
Ooh. Yeah, that could have been a massive setup there, at least from Justin, kind of holding that close angle, having a player to at least kind of mow down the meantime, and just having that element of surprise here to kind of swing on Frosty. But that's just not the case. The aftershot's going to come through, be a tad bit late to kind of deny that spike plan, or at least find a trade, and resulting in a 3v3 retake with the clock ticking for the side of the Warriors here. A&N's going to have to retort eventually, and well, they quite frankly don't even need to do that if everybody just swings in one by one. The expected players come from the expected angles, that the shots are really just clotheslining these guys, and Lil D with nothing but fault lines ready to go and kind of stun these players. It's an easy exchange because just go 1 for 1. Play your squad, play with the numbers you have, and especially in a 1v3. I mean, come on now. We're expecting that to be another A&M round. So showing up here, 3-1 to start things off, showing that, okay, sure, Ascent wasn't really all that hot, but this team chose this map for a reason. They're starting off strong in it.
You did a good job, Mick, I would say, pinpointing the issue with that round and what we've seen so far out of Waterloo Warriors Gold. While they started off the round really strong with this kind of cross-supportive utility, mainly the fault line to try and bail Curdy out of that showstopper demise, in the retake attempt, that was completely eliminated. We didn't see much support from these initiators that need to propel players like Curdy and the duelist into these frags. And I mean, history repeating itself here not soon after I've pointed it out, right? Curdy on an island, found by Austy Frosty. Now you're down a person. And I mean, the A site's deserted, so you're gonna have to play retake with worse weapons. So only silver lining will be these ultimates to lean into, but even Joba is gonna try and rob them of those earlier rather than later.
I mean, just got to see what they can do in terms of retort here. I mean, already going ahead, finding some equilibrium, having all the ultimates in the world to deal with in every single one of their players. So we mentioned, I mean, Texas A&M was the same exact situation earlier on Ascent, but we saw them invest everything nearly for nothing. Problem is, the Warriors, they didn't invest it at all, and they're still finding nothing. But they haven't made that big kind of conflict for it, or made that big exchange. Still, Justin, with nothing but a sheriff in hand, still able to find, too, diminishing these numbers. Having Wingman, having Thrash, having his full arsenal of pals to work with, that you can go ahead and get somebody on that spike while you're still looking to clutch things up, getting that tap off, getting that information, but still with 2 players surrounding you and somebody surprisingly in the back of that site. It's just not an angle you're expecting too many swings from. So Texas A&M find themselves a 4th. The Warriors investing 2 of the ultimates in that last round, not nearly as much as what we saw as Texas A&M investing what it was like 4 on that one round. They were looking for something. It was way further down the line, though. So I'm happy they go ahead and use this early, knowing they'll get him back again.
No, completely. And I will praise the side of Waterloo Warriors Gold, because they did make it expensive for Tamu Maroon. So it's more kind of trading those ultimates to keep the economy for Tamu Maroon in check, right? It hasn't run away just yet, and they still have ultimates to lean into, like the Tour de Force, but I mean, again, it's these solo players being first-blooded, namely by Austy Frosty. This time, Light edits the 1 to false. Now you have no smokes for a retake for the rest of the round. And I mean, you can see the repercussions here now. If they can't take these solo fights, and it provides these trades to come through when there's no paranoia, you gotta propel yourself to take these advantageous fights. And I mean, for second time in Maroon with solo swing one out after another, but Austy Frosty, you know, just frag to fix.
I mean,
Look, it's another showstopper. Okay.
They're just running a gambit so far in this game. I mean, just looking at this Lotus map, they obviously selected it. I mean, this is one of these kind of rare occasions where you can say, did a team select this? Well, looking at the score, heck yeah, they did. I mean, looking at just kind of this definitive stoppage that's going on right now in a 4-1 fashion, the Warriors, Curdy's just going to kind of be lurking around, looking for an extra gun, and maybe kind of playing for exit frags towards one side of the map, but you know that the majority of these Texas A&M players, they're going to be running right back towards their spawn, given the opportunity. So, kind of closing things off, letting that time tick away, and Curdy looking and going on the hunt. I think you find you're only finding those two. Ray's going to run back towards the opposing side spawn, but I would love to see at least making things expensive, and that's exactly what's done. I mean, Lusueño is in a really bad spot where you know they're going to have to get aggressive. They're going to have to push out of this, and still, Curdy doesn't have the read on the side of smoke. It isn't contested by the spike.
No, I mean, very, very intelligent there. I mean, like I said, leveraging the ultimates you did invest, especially when you know you can afford another buy in the round following. I mean, I was going to say you could afford it, but, I mean, Curdy, looks like they're going to be picking up a hero rifle instead. I mean, I would like to see them maybe buy another weapon for their teammate, so it's a little bit stronger of a buy if you are investing. But regardless, the half buy will come through, so they can probably scrounge something up in the next round. But, again, no early timeouts here in this map. Like, I want to see from these squads when the going is getting rough, and 5-1 is pretty rough, and it's even rougher when the entirety of Tampa Maroon is about to come barreling into your solo stacked site, and not even where there's a Sentinel present, but it's just your Gecko. So early rotations coming out here for Waterloo Warriors Gold, and again, Lights edit, I feel so bad. You had such a good ascent, but you're getting first blooded again and again, King.
I mean, playing the Sobo, playing the Omen, I mean, we can see players kind of make these exchanges over time, but I mean, you just don't have really as much to kind of engage yourself off of. I mean, maybe from a lurking position. It really comes down to the timing, and you're just not really finding it there. Instead, you know, right off the get-go, you're going to have these players rushing you down, securing these sites, and especially when you're sitting at 6-1 lead and Texas A&M are clearing up these rounds, especially the faster ones, extremely swiftly with a lot of players remaining. Their confidence is finally starting to well up. That well was pretty dry, I want to say, back in Ascent, but I mean, they took those 5 minutes with pleasure, and they have found a way to just kind of completely rejuvenate themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we knew this was going to be their map pick. We knew it was going to be a strong suit, and I mean, looking how deep the playbook was on Ascent, it's just night and day here for Waterloo Warriors Gold. I feel like they're trying the same things over and over again. They're not remedying any of the mistakes that they have in this joint utility usage, in these solo players on islands getting picked off early by members like Austy Frosty, by members like the Sky here for Tamu Maroon. And I mean, even this round, they're over-rotating. They're getting overzealous. I mean, usually they have 2 or 3 people on the B side, but it's been left just to Havocs. And when a showstopper's coming in, that's one way to make a statement. Zero fear, zero hesitation, and now zero entry prowess. You can see this flood setup retake in place. I want to see this Thrash to counter this pit. There it is.
Already coming out. Like another little orbital V set, almost like the dimensional drip, but still having that much more prominence, going ahead, locking these players up, securing those kills to a certain degree, and even then more so making it that much easier for the rest of the team, especially off how many players you had detained there. Just easy little pickups there for the likes of the Warriors. So good retortion for them, at least getting themselves another round on the board here in this first half. Texas A&M kind of speed ran that guaranteed even half form no matter what. So the rest of these rounds, at least finding yourself a third is going to be critical here for the Warriors. Obviously don't want to look at a 10-2, but 8-4 is what we saw on that first map. 8-4 is always doable, but it's not going to be optimal. But they don't really have much to really kind of answer back in a round like this when you look at that 1-3 kind of ultimate ratio, because Texas A&M, they have everything in the world to kind of create all that delay and create that space for themselves.
But I mean, I feel like we saw a glimmer of hope there from the Waterloo Warriors Gold, specifically there in terms of having numbers in the retake situation, and that's when they were favored. Albeit they had the Thrash to throw into the mix, but I mean, you take what you can get, and that's just counterproductive, I would say. That's a retroactive play into, again, these solo players getting found out early and getting punished. And I mean,
Spike down.
if Lusueño didn't get Justin there, Joba definitely was. So as the dust settles, 3v2 now on the table. The players for Waterloo Warriors Gold divided as well. But again, I mean, Havoc's in a position to be that impactful player. They have the showstopper online. They know Spike is getting planted on B site, but they're trying to wait for some sort of support, some sort of distraction from Little D, and Rosa might just give the opportunity back over to Tamu Maroon. Now they can set up a crossfire, now they can play down this clock. 1 flashpoint, 1 fault line recharged now for Little D to get the job done, but I mean, I'm expecting Joe to have perfect timing here once the swing from Aussie Frosty comes through.
Well played.
The timing's perfect, the shots are not, and I mean, Little D has it all lined up for them. But Aussie Frosty, bold and winning that round, winning the lead for Tamba Maroon.
Really well played there. I mean, even then just understanding where these angles are coming from. You had that surprise element maybe up there towards heaven, but nobody's really going to swing that. Knew the player was right there in that C connect, back towards waterfall, and is just going to kind of be swinging back and forth. Go for the fault line, don't even find the kill on that player, forget about him, and then just rush that player and try to find that kill from that alternative angle where you're just forcing that 1v1. That's the best thing you could have done there from Little D. Had the understanding of the lineups and the matchups there. Just couldn't really have the timing and the opportunities, or even then better yet, just a godlike reflex to find a headshot on a player peeking for a couple frames. So, unfortunate, but it's the way the cookie crumbles, but more so how the rounds go. Texas A&M now with a lead in this half, guaranteeing themselves at least 7, and even then more so guaranteeing that
nice.
Warriors only have 5. And while you find yourself another kill, you're looking for a number 8.
And there, I mean, finally a different play from Waterloo Warriors Gold, but I want to say that from the shadows kind of gave an early indicator for Tama Maroon, so they didn't fall into the trap play. And now, I mean, the Seeker's doing a good job confirming Havoc's is still there, so they feel like their hand's been forced. Now, Waterloo Warrior Gold's rotating back to the seaside, recognizing that this is probably the outcome, the response, and I mean, Navarre on the lurk instead of Joba finds Curdy, and before Spike's even getting planted, the round is basically over. 1v5, only a stinger in their possession. They go for that weapon upgrade and either save or go for it. And there it is. Yeah, I mean, I want to see them go for 1. I wanted the orb. There it is. There it is. I was about to say I wanted them to get the ult online. That was why I wanted to see them go for 1.
Spike planted.
Slow and steady, understanding that things are not going to work out for you, and cue the hunting party. 1 player sitting back towards Spike, 1 player moving back towards spawn, the other 3 looking for maybe a flanking rotation, and that's just not going to be the case. Lil D is going to have an encounter with this guy, but I mean, I wouldn't blame you just to kind of go ahead and hold that angle. Don't really get too crazy and just kind of hold out whatever you can. Because the flashpoint, you have one online. It's going to be extra money for everything, but Tiny's going to be very, very slow. And you're just going to be waiting for something here. And with no audibles being given up, you're not really taking the shot yet. There's a door opening right behind you. A player on the other side of it. And with, well, an unexpected second there available to you, that's a kill being made. 4 players of A&M carrying over to the next one. Not the flawless you were looking for, but that's the price you pay for trying to rob 1 more out of the Warriors.
A nice juxtaposition there, I feel like, in how that hunting party searched for Lil D versus how...
It's not really, obviously not intended, but you're trying to kind of catch these guys off guard. But that worked in a sense. That was a different map. That was a different circumstance. We're now in, you know, Texas A&M territory. You can't really swing on them unexpectedly. And even then, if it comes into the A, like we see a little bit of a push coming through here, I mean, they're going to expect that. I mean, this is what we see so many teams kind of find so much easy pressure coming through and know that the traditional long lineups are going to come from. But Havoc's with a clean shot coming to the smoke, a little bit blind, but still a result nonetheless. You can find this 4v4 coming their way, but not really any guns to scavenge off the back of it.
That first blood was perfect, right? They played off of the initiator, the Omen utility. I didn't want to re-swing there because it would have been a dry swing, right? Little D was not in the position there to help their teammate, much like Curdy here, is on an island. So they're trying to play their life, and like I said, I don't want them to take those fights. Oh, but regardless, I mean, round might as well be over. I mean, Havoc's dying to a turret. Light Edit's in a position to be mollied if they expected to be the gap in the lockdown, but no.
Oh, you're so dead.
The one-way. Stratostep forced out, so they know exactly where they're headed, where they're going, and swing after swing. They're granted 1, but just shorty to get the frag back, to get the 9th on the board. And
last round in the half.
Do you think we see double digits out of Tamu Maroon already, Vic?
Maybe. I mean, unless we get an absolute wild card, unless Curdy can really kind of just step things up with this operator. I mean, it comes down to the gamble of where the actual round is starting at, because we're going to see Curdy go over towards Mound. We're going to see players kind of allocate themselves towards that breakable door, looking for that A push. And honestly, I don't know. I don't think we do, because this is looking like a full C push. It really comes down to Curdy. Can you find that first blood, or do you just go ahead and retreat? And we're going with the latter.
I'd rather have the retreat than them get first blooded in this record, but I mean, showstopper in again. I mean, paranoia.
Bye-bye.
To ensure that they can't slip away, and yeah, I mean, Frosty has been so good at punishing these solo players, and they're not even done, right? They want to end this flamboyantly, and they also understand the retake ultimates that are on the table, so they strip one away. They get out unscathed, and now the Rolling Thunder is late, so Little D in a 1v3 scenario. You know, Frosty was CT, but they don't know that Nabber has now teamed up with them. Only indication coming in the form of that snake bite, and I mean, now the Odin's been uncloaked as well here, and I mean, how do you even swing that corner when these bullets are coming and flying? I mean, Crispin, that's one way, but again, a 3K to end out this half. I mean, that's just picturesque.
Switching sides.
And 2 for a half is just, it's so utterly detrimental. It hurts so much to see. It's replicant of what we saw out of them on the map of Icebox last week, but this is also their map pick compared to like what we saw on Bind, and it's just not all that crazy. It's expected to a certain degree. It just kind of makes me think of what is Icebox going to look like, because oh my god, we've seen this team there already, and oh, the fact that we see a first map for Warriors to kind of climb their way up to a singular map, if they kind of witness a masterclass like this 2 times back-to-back, it really does show, once again, kind of a testament of what we mentioned last week, to where Texas A&M does have these maps where they just see very big weaknesses, regardless of a kind of prior result. But it comes down to a pistol round. Warriors can find themselves a little bit of breathing room. They can get something to work with here, and with a 4-man allocation on this C site, we're going to see blood being shed on this mound, probably.
I don't want to see them swinging him out. I'm not going to lie to you. I see the vision. They want to send that guiding light out and have like a triple swing, maybe a nade off the board contact. But, I mean, that's the trap play that I want to say Maroon was hoping for. Frosty, not only do they get the initial frag, but even the paint shell adds insult to injury. And before a site can be followed through upon, numbers advantage already in their favor flawlessly.
Early start here for him. A big flank coming through here from Curdy. I mean, 2 of them already, but I mean, that's just to be expected at this point, right? So many players are pushing that attacking side spawn where you're looking back to where you came from, because that's the only place it can come from at this point. So already Aussie closing out 1 in the read on Curdy, or at least giving the information to last for a second for somebody else to get picked off. But that's your last standing player, now completely out of Headhunter bullets, but still found enough value to pick off 3 of them. 3 just got to go for this point. So Ghost in hand, same kind of headshot potential. Problem is you're raw swinging right out of the smoke, which has been set up for you now. So there's just not much you can really do now at this point. You can swing out, get the rendezvous off. That's a turret, 2 players, and 12 seconds left on the clock. You're either hunting for kills or you're not getting really anything here.
Which is why Jobo was playing so far back and Lithuania was playing down the clock beautifully in that situation. And I mean, I really cannot fault anything Curdy did there, right? I mean, yes, I was saying, you know, use the trademark, but that was more just to catch Lithuania in the off position, which is what the rendezvous back to safety did. It gathered that information before they were ready to take those fights. And I mean, if you learn anything from these teams, is that these second round force conversions are definitely in the cards. I mean, we've seen it happen twice. It's been followed through upon twice by each opposing squad. So let's see if Waterloo Warriors Gold can add 1 more to that tally.
Going for that same little setup with the Gecko. Trying to see if anybody's going to get themselves up towards Mound, but Texas A&M have already reaped their rewards. They're not really too stressed about the actual result of a round like this. They just know that they had themselves more likely an advantage. They still have to expect the force, because, I mean, they've already seen it so many times where they already had themselves a natural lead that in a desperate situation like this, it's only expected, but already trades coming through, kills coming out, and a wingman to go ahead and get that spike down. You're looking at the Warriors just going ahead, doing all the damage in the world while Thani's being stuck inside of a mosh pit. Can't really get anything done here, but regardless, with the 2 players still remaining from Texas A&M, you can probably say they still had the advantage. Sure, not in terms of man count, but in terms of health, good God, they're ahead by a country mile, to where this Stinger will easily one-tap 2 of these players, as long as you can shut down Lil D. But with Swingyo, it just comes out as a singular bullet. That's all you get to do. 3 shots is all it's going to take. It's like a vandal to the head, but you had the luxury of just shooting somebody in their toes, and when everybody's swinging close to you, it makes it really simple to do just that. Already getting this fight down to half. You can go ahead, tap it, you can mess around, you can see if anybody's going to swing you out, and there it is. Curdy coming from behind. 10 HP in a dream and a third here for the likes of the Warriors.
The irony of that is that's exactly how the first pistol round ended. Lusueño in a clutch position, having to gamble between which angle to hold, and they gamble incorrectly here. So it feels very reminiscent, I would say, of Ascent, where it's going to be side-swapped. Waterloo Warriors just doing their best to defend Tamu Maroon off of this map point as long as possible. And that second round victory is going to do a great job of that, right? You get your Vandal, you get your Bulldog up and biting against, you know, pistols and a Bucky. So as long as you don't walk into Lusueño with this Bucky, you are chilling. And the only other danger is if you're walking to the A site stack, which has 4 players.
Yeah. Already a big investment there towards that cubby right outside that breakable door, but I mean, hey, more the merrier. Why not? Somebody was there. They're absolutely good as dead, but problem is there's nobody there this time around. Better yet, there's nobody on top of that spike either. So there is space here for Texas A&M to once again kind of turn this round on its head because Nabber's present. You see the Toxic Orb go out. You see the Snake Bites. You know Aussie Frosty's sitting in there and giving the call when somebody gets out, but they're just not taking those swings. They're not wanting to take those fights. Instead, they're going to follow them somewhere else and kind of be right on the back of their tail. Oh. Go meet him.
Wait. Okay, this is not
doable.
possible. They still have the Bucky, or do they change weapons? Is my question.
You picked up a Bulldog.
The Bulldog, all right. I mean, I think the Bucky would have done them better in this situation, seeing how low these players are, but we'll let their actions speak for me. I mean, so much utility, paranoia. They know that the weapon's been collected here. Fault not going to connect. But you don't look below you! How does Light Edits get away with that? And just like that, Tamu Maroon is still fended off of this map point. Whew.
Denied spike.
Yeah.
Had all the damage on another player toward their one tap. Just that one matchup there. You have all the time in the world with no spike down just to take that, to wait it out. Have an angle, work off the audibles. Because every time you hear that spike go off, you know, that's one less player encountering in a fight. And the 2v1, that evens your odds.
Whew. Now, I mean, I feel like Waterloo Warriors been getting away with these rounds by the skin of their teeth. I mean, this round again, repeating this C-Mound pressure, C-Mound aggression. I would like to see maybe a push-up here from Aussie Frosty a little bit, just so that they have more information about where this execution might be headed. But even then, the spread of players across the map from Tamu Maroon, very decent to counter, and knowing how stable Aussie Frosty is as a solo player, we're gonna see if they can hold on to this A side if that is the goal of the repivot here.
Another round for Texas where they're slowing things down. Not trying to get too eager to the pedal here. Understanding that, well, it's still a pretty long margin, but you don't really want to give up anything for free. 11-4 with nothing but from the shadows to work with, and a player just swinging right through the entire util setup. You know that a swing is inevitable, but still holding things down so we nabber. You know, to kind of hold off that C site, delay that spike plant for as long as possible, and finally to get the paranoia through. Lusueño is going to be panically shuffling right through that site, trying to cut it off. They know the denial's been made. The wingman's dead, and so is the rest of the team. Down to a singular player to get cut off as well. That's finally a 12th round from Texas, just relying on, okay, C worked out for us. They just kind of gave that fight to us, considering that, well, we threw so much util at them, they were just kind of afraid.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was, I want to say it was like 23-6 at the end of the half for Aussie Frosty. And I think they've only gotten that 1 kill since the half started. And I think that could, or sorry, they had that 2K on the pistol round, and they've only gotten 1 kill since. And I feel like that could be a reason why they've struggled to close, but now that curse has been broken, now the operator is online, and the buy is all over the place here for Waterloo Warriors Gold. I think I have to see these ultimates used to completely shut down this operator, like the showstopper. Okay, how are you alive, Aussie Frosty? I mean, I was gonna say, they have to use those ults to shut them down, or it's game over.
Yeah.
Shut them down, so therefore, I think it is game over. But Lil D has been the mechanically cleanest on this squad, at least for Lotus here, trying to bail their team out here yet again, playing for these solo frags, now getting the support from the Thrash back site, placing the members of Tama Maroon on the off foot, but thank you, Justin, for not overheating. Thank you for playing the objective.
I mean, you're Mr. Gecko. You kind of have to. Not really. You let Wingman take care of that, but still.
Oh, no. That's Showstopper online.
Speaking of Wingman, Aussie Frosty just catering these guys, completely setting them up for success in this round. Not too many players really alive in a situation like this. Justin finding the roundabout and a crazy shot inside the smoke. Not enough spray to really clean things up. A defensive win from Texas A&M. Finally an answer for builders. That thing is endless.
Well, let's see if you are correct as the agent's selection.
Okay.
And here come the picks. I mean, you said you wanted him in a fragging position. What other than the Feast or Famine Reyna to get that job done? My only concern here is that I loved light edit on the Sova for Ascent. So them not being back on that role is going to be very, very sad for me. But otherwise, I mean, everything else pretty much lines up with how I expected, other than I agree with you. I did want to see that double sentinel.
I mean, honestly, I could definitely see this same exact thing if maybe even Justin and Light swap, quite frankly. Just because we've seen Justin on that KJ on Ascent, and he was disgusting. Well, I mean, even then, just playing that KJ role, not really having too much utility to swing off.
They're changing on us.
Okay, well, not the swap I was expecting.
Thank you, Prod. Here comes the true reveal. There it is, light on the Sova. But here, Justin and Curdy, yeah. I mean, Curdy, right? They were on the chamber. They were okay. And I said that it was like when they were on these island positions, that's when they struggled. So them being on a more traditional Sentinel could be what they need. But, I mean, already into the round, and my only concern now, Mick, is that we're starting out on the same sides as Lotus, and it's clear that Waterloo Warriors Gold is better on the attack, whether from Lotus or from Ascent. Both of those kind of coming away with the same conclusion, so let's see if they can get the momentum off the ground early this time around.
Well, these pistol rounds have always been a massive switch up, whether it come down to a singular player giving up a gun for free, or whether or not it actually just come down to the absolute bloodshed that is on site. But the one thing I can talk about from that last map that I saw was Joba dropping a sheriff and it being given up to the rest of the team. And maybe Lil D is going to have this same exact situation. Looking at the rest of the team, not expecting Joba right above him. That was a gun for the taking, but not available any longer. Still a good bit of damage done to the other players kind of lingering about, but still, that one singular player is all you get to work with as Lusingo just swings right through smoke, looking for another free kill.
Now, I mean, Midler asks to answer, but that toxic screen making quick work of them. So they don't even solidify this A-site control. Instead, they'd rather leave Aussie Frosty to try and be that hero player. The rotation was going to be faked or come through, and I mean, now Nabber is forced to double back. I mean, 25 seconds left on the clock. You're in a 1v3. I mean, I might just cost my losses and try to charge up the Reckoning, right? Try and get the orb, try and get the plant. But for now, it's like they might be able to at least get the plant on board. But no, the 4K from Havoc's off of a wallbang. Nastingle, I didn't even think a wallbang was possible from, but I mean, with this many deagles collected as well, this is going to be a solid second round for the Waterloo Warriors Gold. And do we see a force from Tama Maroon again?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I mean, I don't think so. Looking at their history on this map, seeing what they can accomplish, it really just comes down to save your money for the full rifles, quite frankly. Don't try to overextend it. Don't try to go for anything crazy. If you're going to go for a force round, it's got to be more than likely towards an A site, kind of play towards the close quarters. But over towards B, you saw that Marshall being kind of decided on for a second there, and it just didn't really end up being the solution they needed, which quite frankly is not the solution, at least in my opinion, that you want. Already you could find yourself maybe falling to someone, but it's just going to be Lil D knocking a player down and getting out of dodge.
And that's the benefit of that. Reyna is they can play more selfishly. They don't have to be, shackled in to be that support player for other fragging individuals of the team. But, I mean, I love that you pointed this out. Joba, the sleeper agent, might not be fragging, but the amount of impact they've had in this round in particular, paving the way, clearing out all of this A site to give a free plant to Tama Maroon. And I mean, albeit the guns are going to be at an advantage of Waterloo Warriors Gold alongside that numbers advantage. I'm hoping to see some early strikes out of Joba with this forward screens position. wrestle that favor back to their side. Oh, no.
There goes that wild card pretty quickly.
Frosty? Frosty? Oh, and there's your other wild card invested as well. I mean, every frag just going flawlessly in favor of the Waterloo Warriors. And I mean, although Wenyo is able to get one, that's all he wrote. And I mean, the fuse will come through. The charge of the blades almost to near full off of that 4K on the pistol, and now the frags coming in with that hero rifle. Now, I mean, there it is. They're now 1 off from the blades, 6-0 in its round 3 Mick.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, still 2 Guardians to carry over into this next round. A Vandal off the back of it. I mean, those Guardians are just as good as a Vandal, if not better, in my opinion. Depends on really how hard you're hitting and how well you're shooting. I think, honestly, Guardians got to be the most broken gun in the game. I will stand by that. With the best first shot accuracy, still having a little bit more penetration factor than the likes of Vandal, and having that one-shot headshot at any range just like it. If you're hitting your shots, just run that gun. Save some money every single time. One thing you're not going to be saving is going to be at least one of those guns, considering that Lil D is going to be picking up that Vandal, making that swap from the Guardian, getting that respective trade, and taking all that riflage all the way over towards that A site where we see the execution going through and the spike going down.
I feel like this is the first time we've actually seen this scale up successfully off of this high tide. But even then, I mean, the early challenge from Little D steals a frag away. Joba on that re-rotation has been dealt with accordingly. So playfield's been evened back to a 2-on-2. And the only concern now lies in the fact that the Waterloo Warriors gold are divided on this retake attempt. So they have to individually deliver those frags. And with Naber not aware that the Storm Grenade means they're on the flank, now places the in a 1v1 time in their favor. Recon bolt information in their favor. I mean, they have double shock dart as well, but I don't even think light's on it. So the swing, miss on the frag, and there should be just enough time for Waterloo Warriors gold to get that round on the board. Yeah, a little over a second left, and we what if it's like the opposite dominance here between Tam and Waterloo Warriors gold, Nick? How would that reflect on things?
Disappointing, I think, would be the right keyword for it. I mean, expecting this, though, and seeing what's happening, I think, honestly, noticing, at least from today, there's not only a caster curse, there is an observer's curse. Where in those 1v1 situations, if you're looking at the defender, if you're looking at the one who has to defuse the spike in the clutch situation, the one player that has to check the spike always just kind of peeks it and always gets away, and it's just kind of checking that. But if you're already looking at the other player who's having to defend the spike, they're always the one who just full swings and dies, just wants to take that fight. I swear, it happens every time. Never really noticed it till now, considering that that's another round that Texas A&M could have cleaned up, but they didn't. Instead, they find themselves a strong starting a round like this. A lot of players rushing all the way through, and not really any damage shed in that initial engagement.
No, I mean, I really wanted to see Little D take that fight and get out of dodge, but instead,
really good
full
execute.
steam ahead. Yeah, very clean off the reckoning there. I mean, getting up close and personal with the Stinger, best way to get that weapon upgrade, to get back, and I mean, before a retake attempt can even get started, the call's been made to save here, at least for the operator. Light Edit's going to see what they can do to damage that economy for Tam and Maroon, since it is still early in the half, and since they did string those initial 3 rounds together. But Joba is going hunting.
Find one on the light without a doubt. Yep. That's going to queue towards the right here for Havocs. They're not going to extend anymore. Joba understands who's sitting in the back of the map, what kind of gun is at stake here. Sit inside that tube and just don't really overextend. Finally, a round on the board here for Texas A&M, though. I mean, all we really had to do was just talk about how disappointed we were, and well, they just kind of wake up and say, oh, okay, no, that's fair. But, I mean, regardless, though, the Warriors starting things off. I mean, that feast or famine, as you mentioned, Lil D kind of lighting it up here on the field, handing the operator over. Havoc's going to be opting for the blade storming around like this. It's a little bit of an unorthodox round, all things considered, but, I mean, for Texas A&M, this should just be the standard. It just really comes down to whether they want to execute it. And after such a successful round over towards that B site in the last one, why not just try to kind of double down and do it once more? But it's going to be Lil D and that blade storm ready to go, and it's going to be a little bit of a different push coming out. It's not going to be the same old, same old. It's going to be instead the first blood going in the direction of the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, you've been expecting a Reyna there in the form of a little D round after round. So this time, when there's no Reyna pushed up, holding a close angle to dismiss out, instead a jet up in the air above yellow. Definitely the last thing you'd expect here. And I mean, turret should be able to spot out this kitchen pressure early on. Only concern here is the impact of those changes about window, but it's narrowly avoided. And Justin gets the headshot, but no frag to follow. Now little D with the operator has to deliver. And no, the dismiss out here. It's forced to maintain their life. Now Havoc's as well.
Panicking.
Comfortable situation. Whiffs the knives, and I mean, it's a 2v3. Oh!
Swinging, you got to get out. I know that's not much of an option right now. I know there's too much going on. Now with that spike down, you have ample time to kind of get somewhere else necessary.
I mean, Osty Frosty able to get somewhere else. Using that tailwind, able to reposition, and again, I mean, we're seeing the call to save potentially for the side of Waterloo Warriors Gold. And it's these just kind of split pushes for Tab and Maroon that Waterloo Warriors Gold has not been able to pin down just yet. I mean, they did a good job of kind of nullifying the kitchen pressure early on, but it really was just Lusvania slipping through the cracks there, I think. If Little D had any weapon other than the operator, that would have been an easy win for them. They just redismiss and they re-swing and get the frag. But I mean, when they already know you have an operator, when the cat's out of the bag, it's hard to take those engagements for a second time around without them holding the hard angle to counter it. But lead still in favor of Waterloo Warriors Gold, starting to dwindle a little bit alongside the economy. So we'll see a little bit more of a scattered buy. Those who can buy will. Those who cannot will buy up what they can. Mainly Justin with that stinger. Are they actually going to save? No. Okay, I'm about to say Little D. Curdy is the only one that is kind of... No, they are going to buy up. Yeah, full buy up coming out.
I think honestly, I mean, it's the right call from Texas, but even then, more so Warriors. I mean, just kind of going with what they can. This is what's kind of a wild call for me, but I mean, what this team has accomplished in the 4 circumstances has been just really impressive. But knowing that they're going to be going for it in such a dire round like this, where you know that regardless, you still have that insurance of a singular round separating you and Texas A&M. I think they're just trying to make this as expensive as possible. No real ultimates on the field to kind of go ahead and set the tide there and really give yourself that advantage that's necessary. And so you get the lockdown Texas side. That, I mean, it's a bold call nonetheless. And they got to make it worth it. On the defensive side, with Lyda that's pushing up, almost getting picked off, still taking a butt ton of damage there. It's these kind of situations where I understand you want to have that element of surprise to kind of give yourself that lead and maybe get that early number advantage for yourself. But, I mean, I don't know. It really kind of gets to the point where you're figuring out what's the cost.
Speaking of cost, Havoc's getting not just detained, but caught off guard by Joba, trying to take that more offensive angle with the operator.
Spike planted.
Tide allowing Lil D to deposit themselves a little bit deeper than maybe expected on rafters, but narrowly avoiding it. Now we'll get away from Nest here. Play deeper off site. And then, I mean, it's a 5v4 situation. Strike that a 5v3, and Joba finally coming online, looking for all the frags in a 4K flawless. Only the ace robbed away by that backstab from the Viper. And I mean, we've been waiting for Joba to show up. I know both myself and the rest of the production team included. So 8-4, a sight for sore eyes, I'm sure, for all of us.
I mean, able to finally get there. I mean, getting the majority of the kills of what Joba had in that entirety of the last map, just in that round alone, is refreshing to say this, sure. But I mean, already going ahead, securing that equilibrium, getting yourself these round ties, and knowing that once again that we're seeing the Warriors on a kind of an iffy buy, where you're seeing these back and forth of where some players have rifles, some players don't, and it's going back and forth, back and forth. You gotta get to the point where you see some team synergy, where everybody's working together, everybody's on the same page. Because it seems like right now, I mean, you're seeing players just kind of getting to that point where you mentioned earlier. I mean, specifically, obviously in Arena, Feast or Famine, it feels like the entire team isn't on that point to where they're either feasting together or they're all starving, and it kind of feels like they're grasping for straws at a particular point. But able to wrap things around, getting to the spawn out of Havoc's and Lil D. That could be a gun secured, but they already know about the singular player there. Laswing is going to pick that one off. Lil D's not ready for the trade.
They get it. I mean, I like them lying in wait there, waiting for the right time to strike. Now, I mean, the 2v4 numbers firmly in their favor, and they don't overheat either. They take their winnings and they fall back. No all-in just yet. It's going to be used for information gathering on a potential rotation here. Please don't swing it. Please don't correct what I just had hyped you up for. Thank you. And I mean, even now, I mean, Spike not being collected by Tampa Maroon. Gonna buy the clock down a little bit more. Gonna make it a little bit worse for wear. Even giving Little D time to rotate over to the B site. So they could be the solo denier of this round here for the Tampa Maroon squad. They decide to go under tube right into their off-angle clutches. And the Cove, an early audio indicator. Same with the high tide. And in one frag, two frags. Yep. Round in Waterloo, Gold's pocket frags. And the lead reclaimed.
This situation now where the rifles can pay off for them. They find at least some success off of one of those share purchases and Havocs, and you can trust that, well, your top fragging players are going to at least able to pull something off of those guns in hand. So, while the rest of the team may not really be doing too much, especially Justin, unfortunately sitting at 0-4 for this game thus far, you still got ample time to wake up. You're still a Viper. You're still providing that support to some degree. You're still kind of taking some form or factor inside these games, but I feel like that's the one thing, considering the Warriors are still up in this game, and it feels like they have a singular player who hasn't really contributed or shed any blood. It's still just very impressive in its own right.
And I mean, Lil D again with the first blood. This time, traded out early on, so not going to find that late round impact like the previous that we just witnessed. But regardless, 4v3 now. No real ground gain for the side of Texas A&M Maroon, but a lot of information gained by Waterloo Warriors Gold by this double push-up now into spawn. And because that early first blood was Joba, was the Killjoy, this turret's machinations lie dormant. They're going to be able to flank through even now. I mean, I'm excited to see what their timing's going to look like.
I think it'll be fine. Waiting for at least something. Light edits able to go ahead and close off those two. So, I mean, good looks for them. Creating some equilibrium here. 1-2v2 situation, but it all comes out of Havoc down to 1v1 as another trade comes out. And it doesn't even have to move for that round to just be handed on a silver platter. Perfect placement. Well played.
They only saw late edits on the flank. They didn't know if Havoc was there with them. So I was nervous, you know? I mean, that's the kind of gamble you take, is like either double swing to ensure you get a trade, you get the frags, or, you know, take the gamble. Let's see if your hero player like Lightas can do the dirty work for you and lock down the route early rather than later. And that 3K is the ticket to it. So 5-3, the lead expanding. Only 4 rounds left to go here in the half. And, I mean, you can see now, Tampa Maroon trying to go back towards that ace site, and as you mentioned before, Mick, this aggressive forefront gamble pays off for the first blood, but Light Edits doesn't find the same success. Traded back out, so Vasova for a Killjoy trade, and we'll see what the repercussions are in the late round.
Still in a 4v4 situation, not really too much actually sacrifice on either side just yet. Still just looking at this war of attrition, looking for this real estate. And Texas A&M are able to kind of secure it to some degree. Looking to just kind of poke off a lot of these players. They can still go for a full rotate if they feel like it. Separate these guys out even more if they do so feel. But invest in the high tide now. You're probably expecting maybe a little bit of an actual push to come through, or even then just kind of catch that operator off guard. Or just knowing that if you hear that gunshot one more time while the rest of the team looks to kind of maneuver themselves somewhere else, you're just securing that real estate somewhere else. So you can find yourself a free push, free plant, and just kind of worry about that spike working for you rather than against you.
And that's one of the, I guess, I don't want to say disappointments from Tampa Maroon, but as I feel like they could be taking advantage of this Harbor Kit so much more on some of these attack rounds. I mean, they're so great at denying visibility, denying these initial operator frags. And as you mentioned here, they're going to have to take contact-based plays, especially when the recon bolt doesn't spot them out early. And, I mean, operator should have gotten a shot here, but talk to the screen. Yeah, there it is.
Still gets
that shouldn't be a frag they get.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't get it for the rotate even. They don't know who was there and who wasn't. And with the spike being dropped, the player being killed off the back of it, that's another defensive round. Nabber's just not going to be able to hunt in time.
I mean, that was just incredible timing from Justin there. And I mean, no post-plant money, but at least get that weapon out of the hands of Justin. So 6-3, at least a tied half established. That frag as well, bringing now the Reckoning on the line. So you have a little bit more of a execution, I guess, plan that you can fall back on, and a post-plant strategy in the form of that Viper's Pit. But I mean, the issue's been more taking space against the operator. So the fact that Havix isn't reinforcing it here because of that dent that 1v1 left in the economy is huge. And they're not even going to buy. They're going to stay for the operator next by leaning into the knives. So I love this way to try to end the half.
I mean, it's just well played for the Warriors over and over again. I mean, I got to say, Texas A&M, we still kind of, I mentioned it, and I know that talking about they kind of could have gone for the rotation there. They knew that players were there. They obviously had nothing of an intimidation factor on Texas not to go for those swings to kind of create the denial, they were going to sit back, and they still were, understandably so, holding back and not really want to make that commitment. And they could have done it anywhere else on the map, but still pushing right through to the avenue. But feels like Death Valley right now. I mean, I know we're not casting LSU, but I mean, these guys are just swinging right through that hall. And they are just getting picked off one by one, just singular individuals falling like dominoes to where the Warriors, they find themselves a very quick guaranteed advantage at the half.
That is why we do not challenge Viper utility, folks. I mean, Justin, well, the frags don't reflect it. They've just been insane on some of these defensive holds for the team. I mean, even if it's the teammates capitalizing off of its utilities pressure. And now, I mean, like you said, lead established. There's still 2 rounds to go. And the operator, which has been the bane of Tamba Maroon's execution existence, is back online. I wouldn't be surprised if it finds the Annie here, to be honest. Thank you for not thanks for not wide swinging it.
Making some kind of adjustment here, but still trades being made. 1 for 1. The operator coming out on top and knocking down its counterpart. So good looks here from the Warriors. Once again, I feel like they've kind of gotten themselves a better end of that trade, knowing that you got the double duelist versus, well, the double controller. In Texas, while, as you mentioned, that Harbor hasn't really been utilized to the fullest degree is what we were really expecting so far, hasn't been nearly as oppressive of what we're kind of typically used to. It's just a testament, I feel, to the respect that the Warriors have put on their own name, not just in terms of this matchup alone, but probably for the entire league, to let you know that, well, they are not a force to be reckoned with, and you are now at a point in this game where you're investing once more. Speaking of investing, though, that's the lockdown of the defenders on top of that Viper's Pit that was already present. That's a guaranteed rotate. There's no way you don't at least set something up to cut these guys off to let them know that, well, they're going to still take something as an exchange for this. And there it is.
I mean, I was going to say, I didn't really like the double expenditure here, because now you don't have a retake strategy on this B site.
I'm with you.
They're just trying to corral the members of this operator that's still lying in dormancy here on Snowman. But unfortunately, here comes the counter Viper's Pit. Joba as well, without the Killjoy utility present in kitchen. Should have amazing timing here, and there it is. Delivered. That's the pit actually falling. So now you have to use this utility. They're just going to stick it to half. Curdy in an uncomfortable situation, but he's still not planning for them, so they have to aggress into the operator, into Havix, who is good for the frag. We're good for an 8th, and
no charges left.
I mean, Waterloo Warriors Gold headed towards a major upset if they can keep up this momentum when the side swaps.
That's the big thing, obviously. I mean, the way they're playing this defense is just beautiful. But I mean, once again, I mean, it's a form of the way to where, honestly, you can tell they've been doing their homework. I mean, even then, when we talk about those eco rounds in Ascent, where they were using that outlaw and they were using that judge to kind of funnel these players into certain circumstances, we were kind of questionable on that kind of double investment of the Viper roll and the KJ ult, but they're saying, you will go somewhere else off of this. Sure, it seems stupid, but to us, we're, as you mentioned, following everybody right into this operator once more, to where it's saying, even on a round where you invest everything or where you invest nothing, we're going to make sure that we're just putting you in that Death Valley we mentioned 2 rounds ago, where Texas A&M just find themselves falling into over and over and over again, where these long lineups, these aim duels that they are having to take, quite frankly, they're not even getting put into these circumstances where they can even fight them in the first place, because every single swing, it feels like there's just something they're running into.
Yeah, so Usueño in the 1v4. I mean, Justin getting the timing pretty much on the swing. Not quite sure if they spotted them out, though, on the crossover. So this could be advantageous to isolate some of these fights. And yeah, first one delivered. Position now given away. Spike still not collected with a little under a minute left. You can see now them storming, trying to form this high-low, trying to get this early information collection. I mean, oh, they're pinged out by the Allo drone that gives Havix all the information they need to try and position this operator accordingly. Do they even clear belt here? That's my
30
question.
seconds left.
They try to, but Crossfire is too strong. I mean, you just can't. Like, they're just like, I want to shoot you, Light. I know you're there. And finally, the shots align, but the high-low too strong. Havoc's finally dropping the operator at the end of the half to get the 9-3 on the board. Mick.
Oh my god.
We got this.
We were talking about the experimentation. They have been cooking in the lab. Good God.
I like this comp. I like this comp. This is one that finally has worked for them. We need little D on Duelist. That's what I'm saying.
I'm with you.
Like, maybe I just need to embrace, like, the old meta of the double Duelist compositions, you know, no matter what map it is.
Havoc's Light and Lil D, I mean, I think those three in those spots.
With a Phoenix Jet on Ascent. I need to see that match now.
And even then without, I mean, they were still doing outstanding work. I mean, considering just kind of getting that Sage there, still showing, I mean, Lil D was not really on that Duelist role, but still playing on the Sage was the MVP of that map, keep in mind, still having the highest ACS, so still carried, we could say, by the assist, probably, of a Sage to give you that kind of leg up of a couple ACS, of a couple points, because obviously Lida is just being 1 point behind, but,
Ouch.
I mean, everybody else just really show what they're made of. Great start here from Texas A&M, though, obviously, in a 9-3 situation. We've seen comebacks for 9-3 over and over again, to where even then people have labeled it as a curse, but honestly, it just comes down to a doable situation. That's really what you have to label it as, so that's how they have to see this game right here, right now.
Oh, and I love this forward aggression from Waterloo Warriors Gold. They know they have number 2 advantage. They wanted to change it back in their favor earlier rather than later, but they thought they had Lusuanu alone, and Joba was in their back pocket to support. So now, I mean, Purdy, 1v5, and yes, 2 members are low. You can get a, you know, blow for blow action going, but I mean, they're just deserting the spike on B. There's no way Curdy goes all the way to get this spike, especially now that A main is covered by Nabber. They're gonna try and corral it into this stack that's coming in through Garden right now into spawn, and shots for shots. And it's a backstab from Nabber to close out the pistol in flawless fashion. A great way to put Texas A&M Maroon back on track to bail them out of this 9-3 deficit for the start of the half.
Able to manage one. That's all you're really looking for. Take it one round at a time here from Texas A&M. I mean, 9-3 is feasible by all means necessary, but I mean, you got to really want it. And quite frankly, I think it gets to that wake-up moment where we've seen Texas A&M on Lotus in retortion to what happened on Ascent, kind of wake up and say, look, we can't let this happen. But now I think it's to the point where you're not just kind of annoying them. You're really ticking them off when they understand that we could actually lose this game to a team that has their only game win by a forfeit that we're now seeing as a nearly undefeated team that kind of have to find this answer. We got to make sure to manage it. Otherwise, this isn't just kind of a tarnish to their reputation. Regardless, I mean, the Warriors have won this game. Whether or not they win or actually lose it, what they have accomplished inside this week has been unprecedented. So just to close it out, it's going to be the perfect carry on top to it.
Well, Aussie Frosty, like we said, they're the one that sent them to map 3 here. They're the one trying to keep their team in this. Nice for the blood off the Outlaw, and as they try to punish, Nabber has their back covered. Not 1, but 2 or 3 frags, why not? And
yeah, they're mad.
They buy enough time for rotations from Tieni to get the cherry on top, as you put it. And I mean, flawless pistol, flawless bonus conversion. I mean, did you just cast a curse Waterloo Warriors Gold, Mick?
I don't think so. It still comes down to the rifle rounds. That's the one that I feel is really going to start counting. But with an Outlaw, Guardian, and a Bulldog, surely that we've seen with the Warriors kind of go ahead and take attendance. Try to figure out what exactly is working out and really kind of see who's going to get shut down or who's the player to keep eyes on and kind of what avenues to kind of keep your attention towards around the map. But I mean, Texas A&M, they're starting to play with purpose now. I bet you inside those comms, things are getting a lot more silent, a lot more focused, and they're just making sure they win their ones because at the end of the day, they're on the defense. They just got to hold these angles. They got to hit those shots, and they got to let these players just funnel into them.
Now, an early cascade to try and fizzle out this pressure. I mean, once that fades, it's replaced by the toxic screen, so double layer here just to stall out all pressure, all momentum Waterloo Warriors Gold was bringing up. So all that does is inform an early rotation for Tandem Maroon to contest. Nabber, okay, I was about to say, you're in a little bit of a sticky situation there, so nice little sidestep out of dodge, and here it comes, the capitalization off the toxic screen's qualities and vulnerability. And even Nabber with 60 HP is like, I'll take these fights, why not? And there's the punish, left and right. Curdy, so getting a few for their efforts, but even then, I mean, we look like we're on par for a bonus conversion here, Mick. If it's a 1v3, and all those shock darts have already been wasted, so Light Edits has no post-plant utility.
Nothing but a Bulldog. It's something. It's not really utility. But, I mean, a gun can do you just as much, if not more. But unfortunately, that's all you really get to work with. The rest of the team's here to funnel on site and to play the protection game. And on their third here in a row. So, big sense for Texas A&M. Still lots of rounds to go, but it's that point, though, to where if the Warriors are going to struggle to get themselves just to number 10, Lord knows how difficult it's going to be just to pass that as well. Because, I mean, that's where I see more teams choke up. It's right there at that number 10 rather than number 9.
All right. I mean, think about Ascent, right? It was a very dominant. What was it? It was 8-4? Oh yeah, thank you. My memory is not faulty in this regard, and it ended, 13-8. So they were able to wrestle that back. I mean, ultimately, Waterloo Warriors Gold did win that map out, but I mean, our Texas A&M Maroon has a history on this map, has, a pretty deep experience pool on it. They should be able to adjust accordingly. So we're gonna have to see once again that depth of plays from Waterloo Warriors Gold. And I mean, you have, say, Reckoning in your face. Your pressure is pushed, and you're challenging Kishin. That's not good because you just delivered the spike to Theany.
You already went ahead, gave up all those kills there towards the top of Kitchen. Reckoning was giving away that other player inside because somebody was out towards mid, looking at the cues given from the sky. That, I mean, it's so much that you really can't do anything about it. Now you're at a point where this spike is stuck between a rock and a hard place. And with 2 controllers, both still alive, by the way, you're saying, oh my god. What can we really do here? Set up maybe a wrap somewhere. Problem is, you're going for a straightforward approach right through that tube, and you're just trying to take Tiny, which, I mean, understandably so, but you're going to get wrapped in the meantime, because if you're not taking that space for yourself, somebody else is going to do just that.
Ooh, I was really nervous about that cove. It allowed the spike collection, but it just funneled Havocs into Austy Frosty, allowing Nabber for the backstab through that window. And now, I mean, Operator collected to aid recollected to aid the defense. Only 2 rounds separating. Waterloo Warriors Gold, can you take a timeout, please? It'll probably be next round. If they do.
They get a full buy here. I always like to see teams take a timeout after an eco round sometimes because, I mean, especially if it's like kind of a throwaway eco round, you can tell where they're saying make things expensive but make it really slow and kind of play more for the retake. And then we can just discuss stuff because we have one more execute that we can kind of play off that information from. But still, you really can't blame them for kind of understanding that the game's moving at such a pace where they're just not really in a point where they can kind of come up with form all their cohesive thoughts to really find a counter to what's going on here. Where you're at a point to where, once again, as we mentioned earlier, Texas A&M, they're just having to stay quiet, hold their angles, and then just call things out as they see it. Don't overextend for information. Frags are coming your direction. If Aussie Frosty's at the head of it, well, you really got no concern.
Yeah, that was a great example of the points you were laying out there. Following through almost flawlessly, but I mean, the response here from Waterloo Warriors Gold is also pretty decent. I mean, they take the B site. Only thing to counter now is that early pressure. I mean, Havoc's aggression getting punished. And I mean, I was about to say I would have loved to see that plant, but I mean, the rotation from Tamba Maroon is just as fitting, right? They get the swarm grenades, they get the snake bites on it, and you can't even plant, even while there is a zoning ultimate of the 100 tree coming into play.
Oh my god.
You try and dip towards the A site, you're taken out by an operator in the fray, and left. I mean, now Justin's in a 1v4, and you don't even know where the operator's repositioned to.
You at least know it's not down the middle, so that's one of your options you can eliminate, but where is everybody else? There's 3 more players around the map. Nobody's really going to swing you for nothing. Being able to slip through, but the timing of the swing you there to just look to the left and have that perfect swing come out towards you, it's just not really preparation, just good nonetheless, as Texas A&M find themselves an 8 here to work with. A flawless defense for them so far. So, I don't really know what to say here for the Warriors. You mentioned that timeout. I wouldn't blame them for taking it, but maybe, as I said earlier, maybe they'll take it after this, kind of figure out what they can kind of bring out their signature weird plays like what we saw on Ascent with these eco rounds and play towards the A site where this close quarter can actually have some kind of merit to it, but who knows? Because it looks like A&M ain't meet it.
I was going to say, yeah, they're the ones going on the offensive here a little bit. Cascade to force the issue, try and get that orb, but I mean, Waterloo Warriors Gold showing no signs of slowing down, and I mean, they just get shredded through that toxic screen after Curdy finds one. Joba as well with that utility adding insult to injury to place Justin again in this 1v3 situation. Granted, will secure the plant money, so that's a box checked here for the eco round, but I mean, they're playing Ring Around the Rosie now here with Ness, and they're going to meet their opposing Viper toe for toe, and we're now tied, Mick.
Uh-oh. Not even in a back and forth kind of way where you see the Warriors maybe getting one or two. It's just been literally a masterclass from Texas A&M on the secondary half. I mean, the defense, when you don't really require them to come up with a game plan or anything, they're just ready to roll. And I mean, while that hit had some promise to it, quite frankly, it was once they got on site where they really started to run into resistance, which is wild to think, considering, I mean, they found themselves a couple kills in the meantime. It came down to, obviously, that last 2K coming through on site, delaying stuff. I mean, for that timeout, it just looks more and more enticing because, I mean, what can Texas A&M really do? They're not pushing you. They're relying on that operator. They want Aussie Frosty to just kind of do his thing. They know that a half of the map is already just kind of cut off at the start every single round, and they're making you check for it. Where, honestly, just play that game. Get patient and just kind of give them that time.
It's ironic because Havoc's operator also was left unchecked on their defense, but for now, I mean, early Hunter's Fury out just to deny this space here, and Little D gonna just respect that. They open up the B site, they allow for the Viper's Pit to come through, and even Joba is kind of contemplating the use of this lockdown. Finally, the investment out. Here comes the counter. Now, my eyes are going to be on Nabber to see if they can destroy this lockdown here. They're going to put their life on the line for the late round impact, and Lil D's not going to have the timing for the wrap. They get it destroyed just in time. Lil D is detained, but they don't have time to deal with it. They have to deal with these yellow players, and frags are lining up. Lil D has to be the bailout here. They're so far away. Nabber now 1v3.
Too much in the way, quite frankly. Can't blame you for giving it your best shot. Good old college try, looking for as many kills in the meantime, but even then, still so much time given away, and only one player comes out there at the end of it from the Warriors. Not enough time to evacuate the zone, but still. Showing they hit round number 10, it just took a very, very long time to get there. So if we do see a replication of any type, this will be the time to do it, where we saw those 6 perfect rounds come out from the likes of Warriors in that last half, answered by 6-0. If we see a complete mirror of this, well, the Warriors are the ones that, quite frankly, maybe coming out on top.
It's just, I feel so bad because, like, Nabber was doing such a good job with that, like, flank pressure, and they just could not contest with that Viper's Pit. So I don't know if they needed, like, I really don't know. I mean, I think it's just a compositional fault in that regard, because you don't have that double initiator. You don't have more, like, information or, you know, corralling utility in that regard because you use it for delay. But for now, I mean, mentioned maybe this could be the start of the Warriors comeback.
Gets out.
I mean, you'd think the Reckoning would make it a no, but Empress, Nabber, trade for trade, blow for blow, before I can even say who's on top of things. Tama Maroon walks away with the victory, and we're back to back ties, 10-10, double digits. Oh my goodness.
Seen so many players alive in that post-plant situation. You're expecting at least something to happen. I mean, even then, Lil D sitting on site, able to find that first kill with the Empress, expecting somewhat kind of a pressure to be exerted and just kind of keep that ball rolling, but still, I mean, cut a little bit short. Everybody else sitting back towards main, just getting mowed down in that exact aim duel situation I talked about. You don't really want to be in with Texas A&M, but with another round coming underway, another round where you don't have the full rifles, and another round you want to kind of play more forcefully in close quarters. I wouldn't blame to kind of go for that on maybe a main round. I understand they're afraid of Havoc, or Aussie, excuse me, on that operator who's been kind of leaning more towards this A site. But good night. I mean, you got information. At least use that Sova to some degree to figure out where this guy is and sniff it out first, and then just go somewhere else. Even using the middle and just kind of wrapping.
Ooh, Aussie Frosty robbed of a shot. He said the operator position spotted out by the tail end of that Hunter's Fury. So cat out of the bag, Little D unleashed. The only one that can stop them is Nabber, who has been on a tear these last few rounds, trying to drag their team to the finish line in week 6. But I mean, Waterloo Warriors Gold, Havoc's TV not done with their time in the spotlight, not done with their show up against the top team right now, and that's one way to make a statement. Is a thrifty. Put yourself right back in the lead, and I mean at this point in my eyes, Mick, the only thing that can break this exchange is a timeout.
I'm with you. I mean, it's at this point of like the back and forth where you are seeing now the Warriors trying to find themselves a little bit of an actual consistent factor here, just to at least get themselves on site. That's what we were kind of seeing them struggle for those first initial rounds, which was kind of an absolute mow through, not really concerned about with the spiking in the slightest. But I mean, now that they're actually finding that real estate, they're finding a way to execute these goals, and there's inevitably going to be a point where Aussie Frosty cannot afford that operating anymore if you keep on robbing that out of his hands, to where the game plan is going to have to be adjusted. It's going to have to go a little bit differently, but already Aussie Frosty, this is not that round. Operator's still in play, first blood still on the board. It comes down to this A execute whether or not he can find that shot, and who else than Little D to take it.
And I love the idea to fall back here. I mean, majority of the numbers for Texas A&M Maroon had rotated over. We've seen how much of a struggle that toxic screen is to challenge. And I mean, look at how deep the players are for Waterloo Warriors Gold. I mean, this should be so clean.